For those who don't know me, I'm Kat. I'm a wife, a homeschool mom, and an avid reader. For everyone else, welcome back. We are about to start the month of April, and with this means that it's time to return to Aurelium. This is a readathon that happens every April and August and just is a lot of fun for me and many other readers out there. So let's jump in and see what 8 books I need to read for the month. So for the spring equinox, I have 8 prompts that I have to fill that coincide with 8 subjects. For the first, I have animal studies, and the prompt for this one is wolves in the title, content, or cover. And so for this one, I am going to do Solace of the Sharp Claws. For this one, this is the second book in the Fae Guardians series, part of the Seasons of the Wolf section. So in this second book, it says, Sharp claws keep you safe. That is the brutal lesson Thorin learned as a young wolf shifter. Abandoned as a child, singled out by an evil uncle, and then forced to work for the ruthless Order of the Well, Thorin's anger was a weapon as much as his claws. Now a vicious Fae guardian, he hunts monsters, the human enemy, and anything that gets in his way. On a mission to find his missing mentor, Thorin finds himself suddenly mated to Laurel, a beautiful, driven, but damaged human, awoken from a long time since past. A forced marriage is something neither of them wanted, but everything they need. Spending time with her teaches him that arm's length might not be a good thing. Learning to love will mean scratching the surface of both their souls, revealing truths more painful than any wound. If he can get past the hurt, the pain, and the pride, Thorin will find a new use for his claws, to bury deep and never let her go. But when a dark figure from Laurel's past catches up with her, it's not Thorin's claws in question, it's hers. If he can't stop her from exacting bitter revenge, she'll cost him the safety of his mentor and perhaps trigger a war. If he can learn to put his anger past him, open his heart, and trust new friends, he just might be rewarded with more than an advantage on their ongoing war. He'll find love. The next prompt that I need to fill is Art of Illusion. And this one, the reading prompt is unusual formatting. For this, I was a little bit on the fence of what to choose, but eventually I ended up with Dear Fahrenheit 451, Love and a Heartbreak in the Stacks by Annie Spence. This one is a memoir, which is out of my usual reading, but it's also set up as letters to different books, which I thought was a great way to fulfill this prompt. The description says, a librarian's laugh out loud, funny, deeply moving collection of love letters and breakup notes to books in her life. If you love to read, and presumably you do since you picked up this book, you know that some books affect you so profoundly they forever change the way you think about the world. Some books, on the other hand, disappoint you so much you want to throw them against the wall. Either way, it's clear that a book can be your new soulmate or the bad relationship you need to end. In Dear Fahrenheit 451, librarian Annie Spence has crafted love letters and breakup notes to the iconic and eclectic books she has encountered over the years. From Breaking Up with the Giving Tree, a dysfunctional relationship book, if ever there was one, to her love letter to the time traveler's wife, a novel less about time travel and more about the life of a marriage with all its ups and downs. Spence will make you think of old favorites in a new way. Filled with suggested reading lists, Spence's take on classic and contemporary books is very much like the best of literature. Sometimes laugh out loud funny, sometimes surprisingly poignant, and filled with universal truths. So we're going to give these love letters and breakup notes to different books a try. I think, especially with as many big books as I am seeing on my TBR for April, I think that this one is going to be the perfect way to pick up in between books and just continue reading without toting around a huge tome of a book. For astronomy, the reading prompt is a top shelf, whether physically or on your TBR list. I kind of mashed those two together. I looked at my TBR cart, which is all the books I haven't read, because I looked through all my top shelf books and had read all of them. So I looked through my TBR cart and found one that should be on the top shelf if I put it up there, which I will after I finish reading. And that's going to be The Personal Librarian by Marie Benedict and Victoria Christopher Murray. This one I have read The Other Einstein by Mary Benedict and really enjoyed it. She writes a lot of historical fiction, and this one is in that same uh, genre. So in this one, we have, it says it's a remarkable novel about J.P. Morgan's personal librarian, Bella DaCosta Green, the Black American woman who was forced to hide her true identity and pass as white in order to leave a lasting legacy that enriched our nation. In her 20s, Bella DaCosta Green is hired by J.P. Morgan to curate a collection of rare manuscripts, books, and artwork for his newly built Pierpont Morgan Library. Belle becomes a fixture in New York City society and one of the most powerful people in the art and book world, known for her impeccable taste and shrewd negotiating for critical works, as she helps to create a world-class collection. But Belle has a secret, one she must protect at all costs. She was born not Belle de Costa Green, but Belle Marion Greener. She is the daughter of Richard Greener, the first Black graduate of Harvard and a well-known advocate for equality. Belle's complexion isn't dark because of her alleged Portuguese heritage that lets her pass as white. Her complexion is dark because she is Black. The Personal Librarian tells the story of an extraordinary woman, famous for her intellect, style, and wit, and shares the lengths she must go to for the protection of her family and her legacy, to preserve her carefully crafted white identity in the racist world in which she lives. So I am excited to give this one a shot and see what I think, and this will fill that top shelf prompt. For my conjuration book, I need to look on social media and find a book that entices me. This is the first enticing book you see on social media. So I am going to scroll through my Instagram and see if I can find a book. Oh, lots of other stuff. That one's not out yet. Doo-ba-doom. Where are the books? Definitely been a lot of art stuff. All right, let's see this one. And truthfully, I am really just going off of the covers of these. All right, so if I'm completely honest, this one really kind of caught my attention right from first. So I'm gonna check out Crimson Leaves and see what it is about, and I will be back shortly. So for Crimson Leaves by Jana L. Perkins, here is what the description says. Young Charles Eliot, future Earl of Wiltshire, and Henry Thomas come from two very different circumstances. When an unforeseen event throws them together, they become inseparable. More than inseparable, they are nearly identical in appearance. Now bachelors, the introverted Charles and his outgoing friend Henry discover that a loved one has been murdered. They switch identities in London society to better investigate, putting strict rules in place. The most important rule: do not form any romantic attachments while in disguise. Charles is met with a dilemma when he is thrown into a peculiar circumstance with Lily Mason, a young lady who is restless in London society. Lily's sister Jane has been working hard to claim what she feels is most important, a title in the form of marriage to Lord Frederick Fletcher. When Henry tests everything Jane has worked so hard to achieve, she will have to choose to either hold fast to the security of her well-crafted plans or to be daring and try something new. For the subject of elemental studies, this one needs to have a temperature word in the title. And I was kind of struggling with this one because in the Google Drive, it only said like cold and warm in suggestions, but G also gave a list of others in her video. And then I was still struggling even with some of the ones she used. And so I did a quick Google search for temperature words. And one that came up was below, and I typed in below into Storygraph and got Below Zero by Allie Hazelwood. I really enjoy Allie Hazelwood's writing, and so this one was great, especially since it's a novella. And here's what the description says. It will take the frosty terrain of the Arctic to show these rival scientists that their chemistry burns hot. Mara, Sadie, and Hannah are friends first, scientists always. Though their fields of study may take them to different corners of the world, they can all agree on this universal truth. When it comes to love and science, opposites attract and rivals make you burn. Hannah's got a bad feeling about this. Not only has the NASA aerospace engineer found herself injured and stranded at a remote Arctic research station, but the one person willing to undertake the hazardous rescue mission is her longtime rival. Ian has been many things to Hannah: the villain who tried to veto her expedition and ruin her career, the man who stars in her most deliciously lurid dreams. But he's never played the hero. So why is he risking everything to be here? And why does his presence seem just as dangerous to her heart as the coming snowstorm? So, I am looking forward to this and trying out this one. This is actually the third novella, but it seems that you can read them in any order. And so I'm going to give Below Zero a shot. Bringing us to our next subject, and that is spells and incantations. For this one, I am looking for a book that is currently on a bestseller list. And so I think I'm going to go to Barnes and Noble and see what they have. Several of these, obviously, like these first two, are going to be out because they are pre-orders. But number 3 right now is Project Hail Mary. So this one really doesn't surprise me that it's the top of the not pre-order list because the movie has just come out. But Andy Weir's Project Hail Mary, I've actually had this one on my shelf long enough for it to collect dust. This one is a lone astronaut, an impossible mission, an ally he never imagined. Ryland Grace is the sole survivor on a desperate last chance mission, and if he fails, humanity and Earth itself will perish. Except that right now, he doesn't know that. He can't even remember his own name, let alone the nature of his assignment or how to complete it. All he knows is that he's been asleep for a very, very long time, and he's just been awakened to find himself millions of miles from home, with nothing but 2 corpses for company. His crewmates dead, his memories fuzzily returning, Ryland realizes that an impossible task now confronts him. Hurtling through space on his tiny ship, it's up to him to puzzle out an impossible scientific mystery and conquer an extinction-level threat to our species. And with the clock ticking down and the nearest human being light years away, he's got to do it alone. Or does he? An irresistible interstellar adventure as only Andy Weir could imagine it. It's a tale of discovery, speculation, and survival to rival Andy Weir's The Martian. So I'm really excited to give this one a shot. I'm hoping that it lives up to the hype and all my enjoyment of The Martian. That brings us to the restoration prompt, which is to ask for 5-star titles and pick one. So instead of bothering my sister on her spring break, I just went to her Storygraph and looked through her list of books that she's read and picked the latest 5-star reads that she has that I hadn't read yet. And in these were Assistant to the Villain, by Hannah Nicole Mayer. The Knight and the Butcher Bird by Aaron A. Craig. No, that one's not Aaron A. Craig. Um, Alex E. Harrow. Um, Crossroads, Where the Dark Stands Still, and The Ghost Tree. The last three were horror, and I think I already have a horror on here. And I didn't want, like, I'm feeling springy. I want cheerful, happy reads. And so that kind of narrowed it down to between Assistant to the Villain and The Knight and the Butcher Bird. Um, I have read Alex E. Harrow, and I have another book of hers on my TBR shelf. And so I went ahead and decided to pick Assistant to the Villain. And this one is kind of like the premise seems really fun for this one. So it says, Once Upon a Time meets The Office. In this laugh out loud viral TikTok series turned novel about the sunshine assistant to an evil villain and their unexpected romance. Assistant wanted. Notorious high-ranking villain seeks loyal, level-headed assistant for unspecified office duties, supporting staff for random mayhem, terror, and other dark things in general. Discretion a must. Excellent benefits. With ailing family to support, Evie Sage's employment status isn't just important, it's vital. So when a mishap with Renaudon's most infamous villain results in a job offer, naturally, she says yes. No job is perfect, of course, but even less so when you develop a teeny crush on your terrifying, temperamental, and undeniably hot boss. Don't find evil so attractive, Evie. But just when she's getting used to severed heads suspended from the ceiling and the odd squish of an errant eyeball beneath her heel, Evie suspects this dungeon has a huge rat. And not just the literal kind. Because something rotten is growing in the kingdom of Renaudon, and somebody wants to take the villain and his entire nefarious empire out. Now, Evie must not only resist drooling over her boss, but also figuring out exactly who is sabotaging his work and ensure he makes them pay. After all, a good job is hard to find. All right, so for the last prompt, this is shape shifting. And in this one, depending on if it's heads or tails, will depend on, or coin flip heads or tails, will depend on if I'm reading more than or less than 400 pages. So let's flip this coin. And it's tails, which means more than 400 pages. So for over 400 pages, I am going to go ahead and read Isles of the Emberdark by Brandon Sanderson. My husband special ordered this one for me in one of the Kickstarters, and I want to get started on this one now that I am no longer in classes. So let's see what this one is about. All right, so Isles of the Emberdark, the description says, all his life, Sixth of Dusk has been a traditional trapper of AVR, the supernatural birds his people bond with, on the deadly island of Patji. Then one Fateful night, he propels his people into a race to modernize before they can be conquered by the ones above, invaders from the stars who want to exploit the aviar. But it's a race they're losing, and Dusk fears his people will lose themselves in the effort. When a chance comes to sail into the expanse of the Emberdark beyond a mystical portal, Dusk sets off to find his people's salvation with only a canoe, his birds, and all the grit and canniness of a pudgy trapper. Elsewhere in the Emberdark is a young dragon chained in human form, Starling of the Starship Dynamic. She and her ragtag crew of exiles are deep in debt and on the brink of losing their freedom. So, when she finds an ancient map to a hidden portal between the Emberdark and the physical realm, she seizes the chance at a lucrative discovery. These unlikely allies might just be the solution to each other's crises. In their search for independence, Dusk and Starling face the perilous bargains, poisonous politics, and the destructive echo of a dead god. All right, so there you have my 3 physical copies and all of my digital copies of the books that I am going to read during the month of April for the Magical Readathon hosted by Book Roasts. I am excited to continue on this journey, and hopefully by the end of the year, I will have my adept ranking in the Wild Form Druid. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.